The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Stephen P., Ryan K., Matt aka Stormageddon, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Gilmer, and Mr. Biscuits have all been wonderful enough to support the show over there. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode, along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading, this was a triumph. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode, man, I've never covered a Valve game, and here we are covering not even their first one, but arguably one of their most important ones. Next to, I guess, all their games are very popular. So I'm already losing the thread of this intro. We're here to talk about Portal. The first game in the Portal series, the short but sweet first-person puzzle platformer. And joining me to talk about this Portal, to dive into these portals together as a team, as a collective unit, are Andrew and Pilisa from the Experience Point. Andrew, Pilisa, how are you both doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Doing great.
First time for Pilisa, long time for me.
Yeah, I've never been on the podcast. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for coming on. I've been looking forward to this for quite some time. I love Portal, and I'm very excited to talk about this today because we have a myriad of different experiences of how we all came to play this game. And I'm excited, man. Like, this is going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot to talk about too, both in terms of its game development, in terms of the story, its themes, the gameplay, the visuals. There is a lot to dive into. So as we are wont to do, as my friends over the Retro Hangover podcast would say, as we are wont to do, we begin each episode with personal experiences. How we first discovered this game, how we came to know our Lord and Savior, the Companion Cube, and how we just kind of got into it in the first place. So I want to throw it over to my guests first. Andrew, I'll start off with you. How did you first get into Portal or hear about it, and how did you kind of first come to play it?
Sure. So, oh man, the polarity of mine and Polisa's answers are going to shock and astound.
Well, that's why I didn't want to put Pilisa in an awkward spot and make her go first.
I appreciate it.
So this game came out in 2007?
You know what? I probably should have. I normally put everything up, like get like a Wikipedia page up, and I forgot to do that for this. So I can tell you right now, I just looked it up. October 10th, 2007 was its release date.
Nice. Nailed it. So at the time, I believe for longer than I would care to admit, the family computer was, to put it gracefully, a piece of shit. So
Dang.
For a really long time,
that escalated fast.
Yo.
I remember trying to. I was really into Counter-Strike, and it, like 1.5 back in the 1.5 days, and it could barely run the first Half-Life. So I've kind of, I guess, been a Valve fan for the better part of my gaming career. And I remember when Half-Life 2 came out, I wanted to play that on the home computer, and it just would not run. It would maybe go 1 frame a second if I was lucky, if it even ran at all. So I got super frustrated. I even tried to upgrade the computer. It didn't work. And I swore off ever playing Half-Life 2 for the rest of my days. Fast forward to, I was working at GameStop maybe 2 years later, and in 2009, and the Orange Box came out, which is where I believe, the first way that you could play Portal.
Yes,
And I was
we'll
like, oh
touch on
my
the
God.
orange box too. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. And so I was like, oh, sick. I could finally play Half-Life 2. And so I really bought Orange Box for Half-Life 2. I had no real desire to play Team Fortress. Like I had played it at friends' houses and just wasn't really into it. And the other, the things on there, I think there were some other expansions that I just was like, whatever. I really got it for Half-Life 2, and then seeing the Portal game on the main menu, I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Like, I don't know what this is. And obviously it was like one of the most iconic video games, I would say, of all time. And I instantly fell in love. It instantly broke my brain. And I've been crying about the companion cube ever since.
Oh,
Oh, that poor little cube. Pilisa, what
poor
about yourself
thing.
though? How did you first kind of get into this?
Oh, yeah. So back in high school, I really liked the song Still Alive. All my friends would play it.
Mhm.
I It just sounded so cute. Like, and I really liked that. But
Even
I
with
never
its
really got a
morbid lyrics
chance.
and everything?
Huh?
Even with its morbid lyrics and everything?
Oh yeah, that was the era of scary cute. At least for me and my friend group, like we
Mm.
all loved things that were like terrifying and creepy but also adorable, like a skull with a bow on it or like a graveyard with like lace around the edges. Like it if it was creepy and adorable, it was the vibe.
All the creepy Vocaloid songs.
Yeah, the creepy Vocaloid songs, like anime loli girls covered in blood, like all that stuff.
Okay.
That was like my thing.
I had no idea that was an aesthetic. I'm
Oh
dead
yeah.
serious.
Oh
Wow, I'm
yeah.
learning
We've gone to
something new
anime
today.
cons together. That's definitely
Oh
an
yeah,
aesthetic.
it's there's some offsets of that aesthetic like hospital chic, which
No.
is slightly problematic, but yeah, there's a
What are
fashion
you talking
to it.
about? I don't know what you mean.
It's but yeah, back then I was like, "Oh, this is so cute and creepy," but mostly cute. And then I was like trying to figure out where it came from and some of my friends were like, "Oh, it's from this game called Portal." I was like, well, it's singing about cake. I would have thought it'd be like a baking game. Is it a baking game? Like I had no idea what it was about. And then Andrew, like, I didn't know he had it. And you were talking about your expansion pack, and I was like, "Oh, it's here." Oh, and you're like, "Do you want to play it?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to see where this song comes from." Oh my goodness. Without getting into my experience of the game, because I know you're just asking how I came to play it.
Mhm.
It was from that hearing that game years ago and never hearing that song years ago, sorry, and never forgetting it. And then Andrew introducing me to play the game.
The game.
Oh
And
my god.
it took me 8 hours, I'm embarrassed to say, to finish.
Oh, it's
Um,
fine.
but oh, well, you're kind. But it was a lot of fun. Not at all what I thought it was gonna be, which
Yeah.
again, with the lyrics, you would think like it does say it, but I thought that was a cute metaphor. I
There were
don't know.
so many times where something would happen, which we can get into, the actual game, but where she was like, "Oh my god, they literally say it in the song. I thought this was hyperbole or or like a
Yeah.
metaphor."
I thought it was like, "Ooh, this is like this."
Oh no, you literally ripped my heart and killed me and threw every piece into a fire. It's not just an emo song. It's
That
the truth.
and I was emo back in the day, so maybe that's what drew me to it, and I thought it was just emo metaphors. No, it all happened. It's all a thing. I'm like,
It's very direct. You killed GLaDOS and your companion cube and everything else that you could have loved.
my poor
Yeah.
companion cube. Ugh.
Oh, I have some fun facts about the companion cube to go into as well.
Nice.
Oh no, I'm scared. What if there's
No,
someone
no,
living in
not
there?
bad, not bad fun. It's
Oh.
about the development.
I was like, if you tell me right now that thing was sentient, I will cry.
No, there are some people like if you watch on I think Game Theory, the YouTube channel Game Theory did a thing where like the companion cube was people or something like that.
Oh
It's
Brain
not
is
god.
people.
that's not actual like, canon as it were.
Mhm.
It's just kind of something where like people theorize based off of other stuff in there that like, oh, or based off of other like context clues throughout the game, like, oh, maybe the companion cube is actually people. It's not people, at least not
Oh
that I'm aware of. So don't worry about that.
gosh. Okay.
But well, as for myself, actually did not hear about it. It's we kind of an interesting mix between the three of us. Andrew, you like just discovered it just on pure accident. Just through just through discovering it through the orange box. I heard about it. Sorry, one on. Pilisa, you like had heard whispers of it and then finally played it now. I played it back in the day, like you, Andrew, but it had already been established. Like I had heard from people all over the place, from friends who were PC gamers, that I was becoming a PC gamer back then,
Mm.
getting my first like PC rig and gaming PC rig and building it and all that stuff. And they told me how great Portal was. And it lived up to the hype. Like it's one of those few games that genuinely lives up to the hype that it
Mm.
gets, and for a very good reason. It's a very they talk about it where there's like you need to start thinking in portals. It really
Yeah.
does
Mm.
twist your brain in a sense where like
That's a good
by
way to
the
put it.
like you can look at a puzzle and like at the end of the game, if you're looking at puzzles at the end of the game and you don't understand the mechanics, like you go into there fresh, you're not going to know how to do it. The game does
Mm.
Yeah.
such a good job at teaching you how to think in portals that by the end of the game you can look at this bizarre complex room and be like, okay, I know what to do here, and you just start shooting portals everywhere and falling and jumping and all this other stuff, which is a great feeling to have. It's where the game presents you with a puzzle and they've already given you all the tools to like think through it to figure it out. So it's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
really well designed game, and I can't wait to get into more of that. So yeah, my personal experience was just, you know being there when the meme culture around this game was at its highest.
Oh
I
yeah.
literally had a "Cake is a Lie" T-shirt with a picture of a companion cube on it. I don't know
I
if I
feel
still
like I
have it
remember
anywhere.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had.
Yeah.
I had an
I,
Aperture Labs shirt. I think I still do.
mhm. I mean, the "Cake is a Lie" was like, the first, not the first, but it was kind of like the proto "I took an arrow to a knee," like
Oh
where
my
it just
god,
was
yeah.
all over the internet, everywhere. The "Cake is a Lie" is just it's one of those iconic meme moments where now, since obviously internet humor and meme culture goes so rapidly, it's a meme for us olds, but that's besides the point.
Us
We don't
old.
need to feel old.
But I feel like it's still, even if people don't know that it's from Portal, I feel like people, even like younger people, will still hear "the cake is a lie" all over the internet.
Yeah, I
Probably.
believe that.
Probably.
Mhm.
So real quick, we can get into. I got some fun facts about the game's development that we can get into before we talk about the gameplay. The Portal itself is actually a spiritual sequel to an indie game that was developed by the same team that made Portal. So back in the day, Kim Swift, the lead, I think she was the lead designer of Portal. I'll double check on that just so I make sure I know. Yeah, she was the lead designer, Kim Swift, and her and 6 or 7 of the other developers were students at DigiPen. And every year, at the end of the year, they would allow the students to basically have a showcase of all the games that they made, and they would invite developers from the industry to come in and take a look at their game. They made a
Wow.
game called Narbacular Drop, which I when I first heard about this, you could still download it. Go Google it. You should be able to still download this today. Like you can still
Hmm.
play Narbacular Drop today. It's very primitive compared to what Portal became. Like obviously, they were just game design students, so their resources were much more limited. But the foundation of Portal was still there. You would walk through one portal and come out the other, and
Mm.
it had the same type of logic. There was some differences, like for example, in Narbacular Drop, you could shoot a portal through another portal. So if you,
Mm,
which
Dang.
you can't do in Portal, which would make a lot of
no.
those puzzles a lot easier for sure.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
truly.
that they don't let you do that in Portal, but they did let you do that in Narbacular Drop. The orange and blue portals carried over; those were the same. However, you could actually but instead of like circles, it was like these, it literally looked like gates. It was like these giant mouths, almost like stone
Mm.
mouths, with like
Ugh.
blue on the top of one and the orange on the top of the other for the exit one. So that was the game that inspired Portal, was Narbacular Drop. They
Hmm.
premiered this, or they showed this off at the DigiPen Expo And actually, you know what? Instead of me saying it, here I have a full paragraph, a direct quote from Kim Swift about this. Every year, DigiPen holds an expo for graduating seniors, and all of us on the Portal team were all going to school together. And we made a game called Narbacular Drop for our senior project. During the expo, DigiPen grabs a whole bunch of developers from across the country to come in and take a look at students' projects. A couple of people from Valve came by and took a look at our game, and the first they told us everything we did was wrong with it.
Jeez.
Wow.
Or the first they told us everything that we did wrong with it, but at the end they said this is an interesting concept and gave us some business cards. And we called them back and they invited us in to show the game to a bunch of employees here at Valve, as well as Gabe Newell. And after about 15 minutes through our presentation, Gabe stopped everyone in the room from talking and asked us what we were going to do after we graduate. And he offered us the job to come in and make Portal. So we immediately said, oh my God, are you kidding? Yes. And we went outside and stared at each other for about 20, 30 minutes, just not believing our luck. So that's how Portal came to be. They made Narbacular Drop. Gabe Newell was like, this game fucking rules, and hired them on the spot.
Yeah.
Wow.
Classic Gaben.
It's amazing.
Right?
I'm looking at the kind of old graphics style of this Narbacular Drop, and it is wildly different.
Whoa,
Yeah.
yeah, look at that.
It's almost like I don't know, like the Sims kind of proportions, or like a RuneScape or something. It's very strange.
It's so different. Like the Portal design is what the most striking to me. Like
Right,
I can
the
get
mouths.
I can get around like how it's all like stone walls instead of like this kind of test subjects that we see now, but it is just surreal to see like how different the portals look. I don't know.
Yeah.
The whole thing just it's a little weird to me.
I love the orange and blue though. I love that carried through.
Right? It nice little touch with that. The team worked with Half-Life series writer Mark Laidlaw to help them fit the game into the Half-Life world, which makes sense. The Portal does tie into the Half-Life world, but very kind of subtly. Like you don't really notice too much in the first game. It becomes a little bit more obvious I believe, in the sequel.
Yeah, for sure.
The very blank and neutral environments help both with storytelling, since the character as Chell are a test subject. Is it Shell or Chell? I forget now. It's
I don't know if
right?
it's ever said out loud. I've always said Chell with a hard CH.
I was gonna say I didn't know she had a name.
Yeah.
How do you know her name?
We've been playing this for a while.
Oh,
Yeah, but
sure.
in terms of like, if you've only played the game, do you? I don't think they.
I don't
say
think
it
they
in
ever.
the game
No,
at
I don't
all.
think they ever tell you. Yeah.
I just keep hearing
but-
insert name here.
Oh yeah. Very good.
so no,
insert name here. You are the pride of insert hometown here.
But no, the blank neutral environments help with both with storytelling. Obviously, you are a test subject. Chell is a test subject, as well as game design, because it made easier for players to look and solve puzzles based off, instead of having a very visually busy world, you were able to only focus, or you only had to focus in on the elements of the puzzle that was presented to you, instead of trying to find what those elements were.
Yeah.
Wow.
There's a couple other things that I want to touch on that we'll get to when we get to them in the gameplay talk. But that's just some quick fun facts, just kind of right off at the top of the episode. Oh, and the dev team that made Narbacular Drop, like when they were still DigiPen students, they called themselves Nuclear Monkey Software. So how about that?
Ooh, that's cool.
That's so that era.
That's so mid 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But yeah, so that's all I got for fun facts for right now. We'll dive into, we'll dive into the gameplay first, because this game fucking rules. I want to first though throw it over to you, Pilisa, because it's your first time experiencing this. So I would really love to hear about, what you kind of like what you thought. B, just what were some of your favorite aspects of the gameplay?
Ooh, great question. Wow. So you used the word twist earlier. That's definitely a perfect word to describe my experience. Like it was a mind fuck for me. Especially at first. I think I had to get used to and Andrew was even helping me with tips in terms of when I would have to launch myself up somewhere, but
Mhm.
down through a hole, or like maybe launching myself off of a large ledge into a hole to be shot out at another portal at the top of somewhere to fly across it. My brain was like, "Where am I? Which way is up?
Well,
Which way is down? I
and
have to hurry and
you
figure
know
it out.
what?
Oh
It's
no."
like not to I'll send it back to you just a second, but I feel like your confusion is a perfect thing to explain right here. That for those, if you have not played Portal before, for anyone listening to this, what we mean by portals is that it's a puzzle game where you shoot a like a portal, like you would think like a portal to another world, but no, it's a portal to another spot in your same time and space.
Mhm.
So you shoot a portal on one wall, let's say it's the blue portal, and then you shoot the orange portal on another wall. You will walk in through the blue portal and come out wherever the orange portal you shot that other one. And that's
Mhm.
very important because that is how, like, the game specifically teaches you that very early on. Like the first portal, like it was very intentional that the first portal you see that you get to get out of the test room, they let you see Chell. Like Chell is meant to be, you're meant to see her yourself in the portal, so
Yes.
Yeah.
that way you can see, okay, this isn't taking me to a new place, it's taking me to the exact same location, because you can see yourself in the portal. And that was extremely intentional, so that way it wouldn't confuse players as like, where is this portal taking me? Am I in a like a
Mhm.
parallel dimension or like an alternate world? Nope, same place. And that was the purpose of that. So
Wow.
there's other mechanics that we'll get into about how portals work, but I already cut you off before, Polisa, so I wanted to
No,
let you
no,
continue. I just wanted to
no.
make sure, just in case, for those who had never played this game before, how does portal work? You shoot one portal at a wall, and you shoot another portal at another wall, and you walk in one and you come out the other. There's more intricacies, but we'll get to that. So sorry, continue, Polisa.
No, no, not at all. I thought that was very conscientious. Yeah, definitely. I'm sure, I hope that there are other people like me who've never played it. I'm a little embarrassed that I'm so late to the party.
There's still people who haven't seen Star Wars, so
Yeah.
don't feel bad.
I was definitely one of them not too long ago. But, well,
Maybe a year and a half ago.
yeah. But yeah, I really liked the portal gun once I got used to it. Um, I I don't love first person shooters, so I wasn't
Hmm.
sure. When I realized it was first person, I was almost like, "Oh, am I gonna like this?" But I really liked it. Um, it Yeah, it was interesting. Like, it was creepy. It like creeped me out for most of the
Hmm.
time. But I got used to the like levels for the most part, so I felt like I was getting a hang of those. I got terrified once we were kind of in the escape time, like
Mhm.
after
Hmm.
being sent into the party, quote
Yeah,
unquote.
yeah.
And that part where it's like, "What are you doing? I mean, wow, great job. We're very proud of you. Remember how we tried to murder you? Ha ha ha. Ha. That was kidding. Ha, jokes, girlies." So like after that point, I got so terrified and anxious, and because I was like, the rules aren't the rules that I've gotten used to in these levels, like 1
They're
through
out the
19,
window now.
they're out the window,
Yep.
and now I have to find out where I can grab onto and where I can put a portal on. Before, it was very clear, like, this type of like floor you can, this you can't. And then like, yeah, so I would say in a way that's my favorite part. It made me feel like I got smarter after I finished. But in
Yeah.
the moment I was like, "Ah, where am I supposed to grab onto? Where can I what do I
Hmm.
do? Everything looks the same. I don't know what to do." So yeah, I found it really compelling, and I felt like I thought a lot. Like it was a lot of mental um just thinking about how to think outside of the box times 20.
How to think with
Hmm.
portals.
How to think with
How to think
portals.
with portals,
Yes.
yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a whole physics aspect to it. Like, there's
Hmm.
gravity, obviously.
Mm.
There's physics. I mean, it's a source engine, so like everything is on real physics. There's like momentum based stuff. So it's yeah. You at the start, you're like, I cannot wrap my brain around this. I feel like I need a PhD in astrophysics to click left and then click right, or how we did on the controller.
Mhm.
Left thumb or left trigger, right trigger.
Yeah.
Well, and as the game starts off to help you think in portals, they purposely, like the first one, for example, the first time you deal with portals, you can't control um you can't control any of the portals. They just, portal appears, you walk out, and then you move around, and then later on
Mm.
you see like a portal changing locations. Like the portal for the room you're in is staying still, but its destination, like where it's going to take you out, changes at a specific interval, and you don't quite know why just yet.
Yeah.
And
Mm.
then when you get the portal gun, the first one that only shoots one of the two colors, blue or
Yeah.
orange, they specifically bring you to like almost like an observation deck where you
Mm.
can see it alternating around and shooting portals.
Right.
And
Mm.
that's very intentional because it's meant to show you how the portal gun works and how like how it shoots and everything.
Mm.
So that way you can realize like you can use this to like shoot a blue or orange portal or whatever. So that and they
Mm.
make you stand there so you can watch it shooting. So that way you know the mechanic beforehand. Like there is so much intentionality with their design in this game.
Oh my
It's
god.
insane.
That's a great word, intentionality.
Yeah. I cannot think of, like, off the top of my head, and as we were playing this again, I couldn't think of another game that does the pacing as well as this game does. Like every
Mm.
single thing is just one more block added onto what you already know, one more building
Mm.
block until by the time you get to the end, it's like use what you've learned in the past, and you almost like already know what to do or like kind of what to expect. Like I never felt like, and this is one thing that I would minus away from the second game's pacing. Uh, there's nothing that really feels like too much of a surprise.
Hmm.
Like the pacing is just exquisite. Like everything, like you said, like you get the portal gun at first. Well, at first you don't even get the gun, and you just figure out how to move through portals. Then you get the gun that only shoots blue portals. So you're like, okay, I'm
Mm.
creating a portal,
Mhm.
but and it's already linked to the orange one. And then you get the ability to shoot the orange one. So you're like, okay, now I
Hmm.
have to think about two portals and where to put them.
Mm.
And it's just exquisite. The pacing is just
And then once they give you those two
Mm.
portals, they start iterating on the mechanics of like what could happen with them.
Ugh,
So
yeah.
like
yes.
the first puzzle is just like picking up two different cubes with it and type of thing. I don't know if it's the very first
Mm.
puzzle with both portal guns, but you are figuring out where like what to do with excuse me, you're figuring out how these interact, and then later on they have you realize that you can when you fall through a portal, you gain momentum. And that's very important later on
Yeah.
because that is where they have, you shoot a portal high above you and then you shoot one far below you and you jump into it and it'll launch you out the top one. It's not like you're just going to suddenly appear and then fall straight down. No, it's going to launch you like you just
Mm.
shot off a ramp or something like that.
That is
Um,
very cool, though. I will say.
Yeah,
mhm.
it's
Tricky,
awesome.
but dang, it's
Awesome
cool.
mechanic. And there's also
Well,
like all those little like uh, illustrations of like almost like you're building an IKEA manual that show
mhm.
you like or you're building IKEA shelf, like the manual of building a Kallax.
Like in the
And
the test subject, like test number 7, and it shows you kind of like some of those. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah, it'll be like, oh, a cube can come down and hit you in the head, or you'll get hit in the face with an energy beam or whatever. And or there's turrets, and that's another thing that it slowly builds on. And every time you get to a new test room, it's like, oh, and I would see Pilisa being like, okay, so there's not going to be this, so I have to just deal with this and this. Okay, cool. And
Mhm.
it's like another like great way
Yeah.
that they pace you through this game, and it slowly
Mhm.
gives you more obstacles and more mechanics and more, and it never feels like I have no idea what to do. It's just like I have to figure out how to make it work.
Mhm.
Hmm.
True. Yeah, I didn't feel
It's a,
overwhelmed from that portion because of how they were guiding us through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
a mark of a good puzzle game is when they give you all of the tools that you need in any given moment, and all that's left is for you to figure out how to put them all together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
LucasArts, the adventure game, the studio that does like Secret of Monkey Island and those types of
Uh-huh.
point and click adventure games, that was something they really talked about. Like Ron Gilbert, the one of the lead writer, I don't know what position he was, but he was one of the leads over there. He talked about it a lot, where he actually wrote like a adventure game manifesto, because which kind of has a dirty connotation. It doesn't mean it that way, but like the reason that he was writing about it is because adventure games at the time were like needlessly cruel. Like there would be
Mhm.
like you would get to a section of the game, and because you didn't pick up this, like an apple on the first screen of the game,
Yeah.
then you can't progress any further. And so either you have to go all the way back or you have to start over, because if you can't go all the way back.
Mhm.
And so when they make their games, when LucasArts made their games, they always made sure that that you could not get to a puzzle, or they tried at the very least. You could not get to a puzzle without having all of the things necessary to complete or solve that puzzle. And
Huh.
likewise, Portal does that, but instead of having physical objects, it's the mechanics. They make sure that they have taught you a mechanic for something, or at least the bare bones of it, and they expect you to iterate on that mechanic in order to solve the puzzle. So one of my favorite examples with, like, thinking in portals and like the gravity, or the how gravity, your speed accelerates when you fall through a portal. There is that really good example in where is it? It's I forget what point of the game it is, but it's where like you have a whole bunch of platforms and there's nothing but acid below you. So you have to like basically
Mm.
almost do like these frog hops where like you shoot a portal down below you, and then you shoot one on the ground of a
Yeah.
platform that you can't quite reach. So
Right.
then
Yes.
you fall through, you drop down, and when you fall through, it launches you up straight into the air. So now maybe the blue portal is directly below you. So now okay, I have to now shoot the orange portal on the next platform up. So when I fall through the blue portal again, I will be able to launch out through the orange portal on the top of this new platform that's a little bit higher up. And so you
Ooh.
keep doing this weird like gravity cycling like mechanic, and it's very nauseating at first, because it's like it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah.
Tell
but
me
it
about it. Oh,
but once you do, it's really great.
Especially if you come out upside down.
oh my God.
You
That
go in
confused
one right
me.
side up and you come out the one upside down, because you've
Hmm.
the other side of it, and it's just the camera's constantly flipping to try to like get you centered, and you're looking around to figure out where to shoot next, and it's like, I'm
That
gonna throw up.
happened to me so many times, especially in that I think it was right before we went to the party room.
Mm-hmm.
It was that
The
room where
party
we
room.
had to, yeah, I'm just gonna keep calling the incinerator that
Go
before
for
they
it.
tried to kill us.
Go.
There was this big tall room where I had to kind of do everything you're saying.
I think
And
that's
Mhm.
what he's talking about,
that's
that
the
room.
one. Oh my God. I'm really proud of myself for
Yeah.
for doing it. But like at the time I was like, the camera, I can't see. Where am I going? Ah!
Mhm.
But if you don't move, it just kind of like, you just keep going, in and out, up and down. So
Right.
you just kind of like, because the momentum keeps going, you just get sucked into one, get
True.
shot out of another one, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to move so I can get my bearings. You don't have to do anything until you're like, okay, now when I come out, I'm going to aim here and fire.
Yeah, he
And
gave me those reminders. Those were very helpful.
It's not surprising that it throws you for a loop at first, because I even though I've played this game like 3 or 4 times, I still had like moments where I'm like, oh, how do I beat this one? I don't quite I figured it out much quicker than when I normally would, like when I
Mm.
first played it. But even so, like it was just like it would still take you time, because some of these puzzles are insane, like some of the
yeah,
Yeah.
stuff that they have you do. So it, it's not surprising that it takes a little while. And like that's why when you're saying like, oh, it took me 8 hours, I feel kind of bad. I don't. It's a tough game. Like thinking in portals takes a lot to like get used to. It
yeah,
is a very confusing mechanic if you have not played a game like this. And there are very few puzzle games like Portal, and that's a good thing, but it's also can be very frustrating at times.
yeah. This is also the
Mm.
second first-person shooter that she's played.
That's true.
most of you, not to speak for you, but most of your
Oh yeah.
taste in video games is more along the RPG. The Kingdom
Yes.
Hearts,
Final
Final
Fantasy.
Fantasies, now Infinity Nikki, which is
I
not an
love
RPG, but
it.
it's definitely not a it's not a first person shooter.
No, yeah, I'm very used to seeing the character on screen, so that also kind of took me a minute to get used to, but it was really cool, especially seeing her in the portal. Like I think you had mentioned it earlier, Josh. Like seeing
Mhm.
yourself inside of the portal. I was like, whoa,
It's so trippy.
trippy.
It kept scaring you. You
Yeah.
kept like you'd go through a portal and see yourself
I'd be like,
like going through the portal. You'd be like, "Oh my god, who's that?"
I know,
Like,
it's
it's you.
true.
It's just you. It's just
It was so funny. It'd be the back of my leg. I'd be like, oh, okay.
you.
Oh my God.
Did you ever just try to chase
Oh,
yourself and be like, I'm going to get myself someday?
Yes. Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Or like you put the two portals side by side, and then you can like walk
Yep.
like sideways halfway into one and then up into the edge of the portal, and you're just like face to face with yourself, and you're like,
whoa.
could I like make out with myself?
I wonder if in like real life, if you could like, if portal guns really existed, if you could just like put your arm through a portal and touch your own shoulder,
There's a
Ooh.
like
lot
how
of
weird.
things I think everybody would try first.
Oh, okay, all right.
What are you
Which I
talking
would
about,
be
Andrew?
I'd be too
Yeah,
afraid of
honey, what you talking about?
I would be too afraid of the portals closing, and then all of a sudden
Just hanging out
you're
by itself.
you're in
Just
half.
dang.
Yeah.
Oh.
That actually, so it's something. What is it? They shoot. I forget exactly. So on Portal, like in the game itself, you can actually turn on developers' commentary, which is
Right.
really cool. And one of
Yeah,
the
I've never
things they
seen that in
they
a game.
it's so they have these little like little icons that you can hit the action button with, essentially, to basically be like, or the confirm button, and you can listen to developers share some cool stuff. And one of the things that I believe they mentioned is like they purposely had like a portal where like you would have to be like stuck in the middle of when it would close. And the reason is because they wanted to make sure you knew that you weren't going to get killed by having a portal, by being stuck in a
Oh,
portal. Like you can't
Oh.
get dismembered by the portal. And
Oh,
that
that's
was very intentional and purposeful.
I kind
oh.
of wish that you could.
Masochist.
Like there's no, not for just because like there are plenty of ways to die from the environment in that game, and they're not shy about burning you to death or falling into acid or
Hmm.
being crushed or being blasted by some energy beam. So like I kind of wish there was a way to just like, it just does the death animation, like it just goes red and then you fall and it just does the Half-Life like that it does. But actually, does Portal do the Half-Life death sound?
I have no idea.
I don't remember. Maybe I'm just because everything on the Source engine just kind of feels like the offshoots of the same game to me. I kind of
Mm.
wish that you could, accidentally kill yourself as in a portal.
Dang.
It would be realistic and it would be immersive.
True.
But immersive isn't always like I'm not always fan of them. I actually went less like realistic shit in games. I'm kind of tired of like everything being gritty and realistic.
Oh,
I
100%.
bring back big head mode. Damn it!
Yeah.
I want to see
Paintball mode.
games that are just not afraid to take themselves like nonsensical.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's what I
About
want to
that.
see again. But
I
no,
was just-
sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying, Andrew and I were talking about that recently, like the hyper realism and the possibility that like a lot of video games might rubber band back to like, maybe less real and more maybe like cartoon, or maybe not cartoony, but like more fantastical styles again. I was
Mhm.
watching him play Cuphead the other day, and I was like, "Oh, this is so cute. I like this. It's really nice to kind of like, I don't know."
Yeah, it's so. I always complain about this whenever we were talking about the today, as of this recording, was the like there was a state of play today, and we were talking off mic about that, and there was a lot that I was like, okay, like more samey kind of super gritty, or like the same kind of fantasy type game. And then I saw something for the Midnight Walk, which is like that creepy
That
claymation.
claymation type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, fuck yeah, like this is what I've been missing in video games, where it's like it does, like so many games don't have a visual a really distinct visual identity anymore, because everyone's just trying to be like, well, it's got to be super realistic.
Yeah.
And
I can't see your pores. No one will buy it.
right, and it's like, well, why can't there be game like Portal has a very distinct, even though it is realistic, it has a very distinct visual identity. And I love that, and I miss that. Like, and I had somebody on my show last night to talk about Okami. Like, that's maybe the most iconic like art style of a video game before. And I just, sorry, I got up on a soapbox for a second there. I just get
No,
triggered.
you're fine. You're fine.
I just want to go back to like bold choices with visual design. Like, it doesn't always just have to be make it look the most real, you know?
I think sometimes that, like, I don't know, this is a non sequitur, but like, I think sometimes, I think one of the reasons we were in such a gritty, realistic type of thing was like our world around us was relatively like samey. So we were looking for something a little bit more like gritty. And now that our world is so serious, like, you know, not to get heavy or anything like that, you know, with the current state of the US, but like, I feel like people just want something like they don't have to like think about. That's why, like, you know, like what, like Looney Tunes and shit, right?
Yeah.
That was made, they were made during World War II because World War II was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So like, I don't know, this is not based off of any actual research. This is just all conjecture and just kind of thoughts. But like, I almost wonder if like we're going to see more silly, nonsensical, goofy games make a comeback, and like slapstick make a comeback, because we are just kind of tired of all like, you know, everything has to have a serious message. I'm like, I'm tired of serious message. I got enough serious shit in my life to begin with.
Right. Or
Hmm.
maybe
Um,
that's why all the games that are coming out now are not all, but I'm generalizing here. A lot of like we're in like the cozy renaissance right now. Like, I feel like,
yeah.
especially on Switch, is like, enjoy a cozy farming simulator. Get away from your real life. Just hang out and fish and catch bugs and, like, you know, Animal Crossing type games, or little farming sims like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley and all of these. Like, there's a Lord of the Rings game coming out where you get to like be hobbits in the Shire and
Ooh, I
just
heard
hang
of
out and,
that.
and eat entire wheels of cheese like we all want to do. And I think that's where we're probably getting a lot of or that's why we're getting a lot of those types of cozy escapism games, because of everything that's going on right now.
Yeah. But anyway, we should get back to Portal.
Yes.
But I'm with you on that. I think that like we're both kind of tired of like the gritty this, and like I think Portal, to touch into Portal, while Portal has like some quote unquote grit to it, it's so kind of tongue in cheek, which is definitely like a very mid 2000s like sense of humor, like the kind of
Oh
tongue
yeah.
in cheek sense of humor. But I think it works in this because sometimes I get like, I don't know. I played the, you ever played the Stanley Parable?
No, I can't. I hear about that almost every day of my life, so I think I need to play it.
I didn't like it at all.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll probably love it then,
So
because you and I have very different tastes in video games.
well, so I think it's one of those things where it's just like it's being a little pretentious. It's like, look how mundane office life is. You know, are you controlling? Is the game controlling you, or are you controlling the game? Like
Okay.
it's shit like that, and that had its place back in like 2012 when that game first came out, or 2011. But like now, it's kind of like, listen. I know games manipulate me in order to get what they need done. I get it. I'm not like, it's fine. You don't need to be preachy to me about it. So I don't know. I have thoughts and feelings. I have a lot of feels about that game.
Hmm.
But so anyway, with Portal, we've touched on the gameplay already and like some of the different mechanics that it offers. I think something else to like also touch on in terms of its gameplay is like all the different things that it like has you like. They don't just throw just gravity puzzles at you or these block puzzles. They also have these like electric orbs that will shoot
Mhm.
through the ceiling, or like bounce back and forth from like an emitter until it bounces enough, like it hits a surface enough to the point it just disappears. So you have to make sure that you have to basically see where it's at, and then there's like a receptacle for that energy ball that you have to like direct it into using the portals.
Yeah.
There's also little robots that you have to like
Oh,
not stand in front of because they will
hello,
shoot the shit
friends.
out of you.
I love them.
Oh, I
Yes.
hate
I
them
love
so
them so
much.
much. I quote them all the time. I'm always walking around the house going, "Are you still
I'm not.
there?
I'm
No
not
hard
angry.
feelings.
Can you come over here?"
I see you. Gross.
And you knock one over. I don't blame you.
Oh gosh, they're so perfectly creepy.
They are very creepy. We'll get into it when we kind of talk about like the vibes of this game, but like this game does a really good job of making things like horror without actually kind of intending it to be horror, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
definitely.
really cool.
I know Police's got a lot
Um
to say about that.
I sure do.
oh, I can't wait. Uh Before we get into the themes and into the story though, two other elements with the gameplay that we should touch on. I mentioned the orbs. There's also, and when we mentioned the bots, there's also the companion cube and the final boss. Those are kind of like the two like midway. Oh, the companion cube's a little bit before midway, I guess. But
Oh.
the companion cube, for those who don't know, so you have these cubes that you use to like hit buttons and stuff, like to set on buttons and whatnot,
Mhm.
and that'll allow you to open doors, which is fine and dandy. But the thing is that you about midway through the game, you get this cube that you've been using before, but instead of just a regular cube, it has a little heart on it, on all four, or like the center of all four parts of it, or
Yeah.
all four sides, excuse me. And it's called the companion cube, and you have to bring that cube with you to solve a handful of different puzzles. You need to bring it along with you for a small portion of the game. What's wild is it feels like a much larger portion of the game. Like when I was playing it again, I'm like, wow, I really only have the companion cube for maybe like 10 to 15 minutes, but
Right.
it leaves such a mark on
It
in
really
your like
does.
consciousness. It's nuts. And one of the things I looked up is the companion cube came from a writer, basically the companion cube came from a writer doing like looking at declassified interrogation techniques, like,
Hmm.
Whoa.
Ooh.
and one of the methods that subjects in isolation, or one of the things it mentioned in that, I should say, not methods, one of the things it mentioned in that like declassified interrogation techniques that this guy was reading, was that subjects in isolation for long enough grow attached to inanimate objects. And
Mm.
so since Chell has been in isolation for so long, they kind of put that into the game and into the story, and it works really well. Like you do develop, because the game keeps telling you like this is your companion cube, look at the hearts, like it's giving you that emotional connection, even
Mm.
though it's all tongue-in-cheek and silly. And like when you throw it into the incinerator, you're like, all right, well that kind of sucks, but I gotta move on. And then the game mocks you for it. Like it's like
Yes.
Yeah.
it makes you get attached to this inanimate object, and then makes fun of you for getting attached to it and getting rid of it. What did you both think of the companion cube though?
I think I just want to jump in real quick and say, like, it's this whole sequence with the cube is it's only, I don't want to say only, it's so impactful because of the absolutely stellar writing that you get, like in this game, like the lines from
Mm-hmm.
GLaDOS, like start to finish, like some of the best writing of any video game ever. But this part is so backed up by GLaDOS, like, saying, we would like to remind you that the weighted companion cube will not and cannot speak to you, and if it does, it should not try to stab you. It's like,
Whoa.
it almost like goads you into falling in love with it by being like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, this is your friend, the weighted companion cube. And then, like you said, when you incinerate it, she's like, wow, like she gaslights you and is like, wow, you euthanized your faithful weighted companion cube faster than any other test subject.
Yes.
It's
Good
awful.
job.
It's awful. That just makes it hurt worse. Like, I
So
think
cruel.
without the backing of the incredible writing and the performance of Ellen McLean as GLaDOS, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if it would have had the same, no pun intended, but weight.
Hello.
But it does. And so, to roundabout answer your question, yeah, it's devastating. I do kind of wish though that you had the cube through the entire game,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
not just
I
like
think
that
it's,
little bit of the
well,
mid part.
so the reason why you had to get rid of it was for the final boss. The mechanic to beat the final boss is throwing parts of Gladys into the incinerator.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I
They
meant
realized when they realized when they got to that no one, like they never did that at all. Like I think they were going to let you keep the companion cube for longer, but
Oh.
because they had never taught you the incineration mechanic, no one knew to throw GLaDOS's pieces into the incinerator. But
Yeah.
because they have you do that with the companion cube, it taught you to do that. Now, I guess technically you could have done that with any cube. It didn't have to be the companion cube, but that kind of, ruins the joke then.
Yeah, I think I meant that I wish you start with the cube or get it way sooner. I think it would make it that much more
You're
impactful
cruel.
if you
Oh,
had
that
it
hurt
through the whole
me.
game.
That would hurt me.
I mean, I would say I'm not saying that that's a bad idea, but I'm saying I think it was pretty impactful already, considering it's something that people talk about. Like when this game came out in like 2007, like 18 years later,
Right.
and people are still referencing the companion cube. It's wild, right? Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
And
Yeah.
it's arguably the most iconic thing to come out of that game. Like anytime you see, like you said earlier, you had a shirt with a companion cube on it. Like whenever you see merch from Portal, it's 9 times out of 10 it's it's of the companion cube.
You can get companion cube plushies. Like they're
Yeah.
Oh, I want one. That definitely broke my heart, having to burn it. I thought the
Mhm.
game was kidding, and then I realized it wasn't. Um, yeah, that was pretty devastating. I was scared that there was somebody hidden inside of it with the cryptic script. I was like, "Am I murdering a sentient being?"
It just cracks open and there's a kid inside, like, oh my god, please help me.
I was ready for that. I was like, "Oh my god! Oh my god! Oh!"
Well, we just played Little Nightmares, so we didn't really know what to, or she didn't really know what to expect in that way.
Dang.
I mean, oh man, that would have been a perfect transition to talk about the themes and like the vibe of the game. But we have to talk about the boss still before we close out the gameplay segment.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, how do you
Um,
guys know the boss's name? I didn't know it had a name.
Oh, GLaDOS. Well, so it does say at the very end when you do what you do. I'm worried about spoiling an 18-year-old game. When you kill,
well, okay, you know what? Spoiler for those who don't know. I already kind of spoiled it with talking about the companion cube. But for those who don't know, we are going to be spoiling how you beat the boss here. And if you don't want to have that spoiled for you, go play the game and come back. It's literally an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on the person playing. But it is a very short game. It's not going to take you a long time at all. So please give it a play. It is very much worth your time. So yeah, go ahead and talk about the boss, Andrew.
well, I was just gonna say, I think when you do kill her, when you blow her up at the end, there's like a big piece of her that says like GLaDOS on it.
Mhm.
So I think that's where
Oh.
that's a great question. Like how do we know Chell's name? How do we know GLaDOS's name?
Mandela effect, maybe. Who
Maybe.
knows?
Yeah, but I don't know. I remember you saying when we were first talking about doing a Portal episode, you were like, "Yeah, you can beat like Portal in like an hour," and I was like, "I don't know about that." Like, I think it's probably maybe 3 to 5 hours normally. But yeah, if you have, for some reason somehow have not played this game, play this game.
I mean,
It's really
I beat
good.
it in an hour and a half. That's why I was saying you can beat it in like under
Your
2 hours.
first
Like,
playthrough.
no, I'm not talking. I just mean in general. I don't know how long my first playthrough was anymore. I have no idea what that was, but
It's probably been
uh
so long.
I mean, I would guess it probably took me about 4 to 5 hours, like you said, Andrew.
Yeah.
Maybe 3. Um, I think it was closer to 3. I don't remember. My recent playthrough, I just beat it in a sitting. It's a very short game once you know how to think in portals. Like even like I don't remember all the puzzles, but I remember how to think in portals because the game does such a fucking great job at teaching you these mechanics. Like that's something like when we go into our final thoughts on gameplay, that is something I'm going to hammer home a little bit more again. But yeah, like with the boss, pretty much GLaDOS is like dangling from the ceiling,
Cool.
and you have to use the portals. Like she has like this automatic turret that's popping up, and you basically have to use portals to get the turret to shoot a rocket at you. You dodge it, it goes through the portal, it comes out the other portal and hits GLaDOS, and then it knocks a
Mm.
part of her off. Then you pick up that part and you throw it in the incinerator, and you have to do that. I think it's like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, and the parts
And
are like little cores that all talk to you. They're like different parts of
yes,
her.
Yeah, I thought there were
I love
different
the one
parts of
that's
her
like
heart.
insane.
Huh? Oh, I'm sorry, huh?
No, no, no. Sorry, I was just going to say I love the one that's insane. Where like all of them are kind of like saying random things, and there's one that's just like.
The
Yeah.
last one.
The angry one, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Sorry, what were you saying?
oh,
Police.
Oh,
I cut police off earlier.
it's okay. I was just saying it seemed like pieces of her heart. We had the first one that was really like innocent and like almost was talking like a little kid, like, "Hi, who are you? Where are we going? Ooh, this is nice." And then the second one that was just rattling off cake
the cake
ingredients,
recipe.
which like sounded cute at first, but then got slowly more sinister and strange and clinical.
Shaped sediment is one of the ingredients.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like even if this cake was real,
Would be poison.
it would be it'd be poison. And the last one was just psycho feral. It reminded me of have you heard of the id, Josh? The id and the ego? Like these different
Yeah,
parts
I
of the
have.
psyche?
I forget the specifics of it, but like I have heard that before.
Yeah. So the id, from what I remember, is supposed to be like your frontward facing, like it encompasses how you're socialized and like the rules that you're taught to adhere to in terms of social structure and interaction with other
Hmm.
people, kind of your morals, your values, like the person you want people to see. I think that's like the more conscious part of you, and your ego is like the subconscious, primal,
I think it's the other way
feral.
around.
Really?
From what I remember,
I thought
I think id is like your primal base. Like when you have those thoughts of like, what if I just punch this person in the face? You're like, why did I think that? Like that. That's the id.
I don't know why I thought that was the ego.
I might be
Okay.
wrong.
Well, one of them is how I thought of that last one, the like the angry one. I like this seems like the inside of a human psyche, untouched by like socialization or morals or anything else. Like this just seems like raw, unfiltered, primal, like carnality. It was just like I was like, I put you deep inside of me and hide you away in my psyche.
That's
Like,
what she said.
damn. I walked right into that one.
Andrew,
Sure did.
how dare you? So real quick, I did just it is your unconscious mind, and then ego and superego are your conscious mind.
Oh, okay,
Super
you're right,
ego.
hun. Yep. Okay. Yeah. So then that angry thing then was the id. Okay.
Yeah,
In
just
my brain,
it was unhinged.
Yeah, I like that. I like that it slowly got more and more unhinged. I felt like we were diving deeper into its soul,
Yeah.
which made the throwing him in the fire part even more. I don't want to say I felt bad because that bitch scared the shit out of me the whole time, but I definitely was like, oh God. Like
The first part that you throw away is like almost like her inhibitors, and she says something. Well,
Yeah.
actually, she says maybe my favorite line in the game when you throw away the first part. She's like, "Oh, I remembered what that part was. It was the part that they installed when I flooded the testing center with a deadly neurotoxin, so that I would stop flooding the testing center with a deadly neurotoxin." And then it's like, wait, she was inhibited before. Like this was with the like restraints on. Now she is truly dangerous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It and real quick to kind of get back to just because I have it up in front of me, your superego is it incorporates values and morals of society which are learned from one's parents and others, develops around 3 to 5 years of age during the phallic stage of psychosexual development. So there we go. This is from simplypsychology.org. So take it with for what it's worth. And then the ego, Freud's ego is the rational part of the psyche that mediates between the instinctual desires of the id, your inner self, and the moral constraints of the superego operating primarily at the conscious level. So it's the mediator between those two.
Thank you for clearing that up. Wow, I had it flipped upside down.
All right, you just got to put your
well, there we go.
and reverse it.
I'm screaming. Yo.
Yeah, so I could totally see that though with GLaDOS, like how like you're kind of taking away like that's her ego first or her super ego. That actually kind of makes sense. So the ego is just desperately trying to mediate it. That's where Cake comes from. It's like this bitch inside me is really fucking crazy, and the other one's outside is very nice. So the only way I can find a way to broker these two is just cake, lots of cake.
Cake. Here's the ingredients. Like,
but then I wonder if the first one that's like, oh, who are you? Oh, you're the lady from the test. Hi. I wonder if that's like an supposed to represent like innocence or, your inner child or.
Well, it could. I could definitely see that. I could see how it could be both that and the super ego because, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm using my own life experience. My parents really liked when I acted like curious and open and asked them questions about themselves. I feel like that ties into like at 3 to 5, you kind of learn to start asking other people. Like you learn you're not the center of the universe.
Mm.
So I think the questions that the first part was asking fit like, you're the lady. Where are we going? Ooh, what are you here? What are you like? It seemed like really approachable and like you could talk. That seemed to be the only part that you might be able to talk to.
Right.
The other one, like you were saying, Josh, could be the ego that's just like, vegetable oil, flour, sugar, gravel, like or sediment.
Sediment.
And then definitely the last one had to be the id. It was
Yeah.
wow.
And just can't get over it.
Like Stitch.
Oh, it's
Dude,
so
it's like
fucking funny.
Stitch before Lilo kind of like, loved on him and helped him kind of understand how to channel all that chaos.
Yeah.
Maybe GLaDOS just needs some love, man. Maybe she's just,
Hannah.
I mean, that's so the idea of though that they kind of posit in this game as well as even more so in Portal 2 is that it almost feels like GLaDOS is just the remnants of like this was run by this company existed, Aperture Science. They built up, they got this AI computer, and everyone's long since dead. Excuse me, in this facility,
Is that
and
why we don't
GLaDOS is
see anyone?
You may have spoiled a bit from the second one.
Oh, I wasn't gonna play. I'm too scared. I'm terrified of Portal.
I mean, that I actually don't remember if that's from the second one. So Andrew, you spoiled it. I was speculating
Nah,
because I couldn't remember.
I was wondering,
dude, I'm serious. I genuinely could not remember. I was speculating what because the other thing though, the reason why you kind of just going on with that creepy vibe too. I guess we can kind of transition into like we've already kind of touched on it with the bosses and themes and stuff. We'll transition into the themes now, I guess. But I'll say this, and then I want to just do one final thing about the gameplay that I just really want to talk about. But in regards to this, what we're talking about right now, one of the things in the developer commentary, it's in the first level. I only got into the first level with the developer commentary, so I didn't get very far. But the like viewing rooms that you can see above, like where they have kind of like the pixelated glass or whatever, the foggy glass, that was meant to do two things. One, it provided an easy light source that was like they could illuminate the room and it wouldn't look like weird. We're like, where's this light coming from? And two, it made you feel watched. It made you feel uncomfortable.
Yes.
It made you which continues to go into the themes of the game of like you being a test subject. Now I have one final thing to say before we go on to, because I feel like we can all like the whole aesthetic and vibe and themes of this game are just incredible, and I feel like we all will have a lot to say on it. The last thing I want to say on gameplay before we transition over to that, it's kind of like at least my final word, and if I'll throw it over to you if either you have anything to say as like final thoughts on gameplay. But for at least for me, this game I do think does such a phenomenal job of teaching you mechanics at such an incremental pace that you don't realize you're learning new things as you're learning them, which I think is one of the most genius teaching tools you could possibly have. Like if you can teach someone, if you are able to teach a player mechanics without realize they're being taught those mechanics, that is like expert design in my opinion. And this game does that in spades. It's so much so that they are consistently teaching you new mechanics and iterating on those mechanics, whether they're teaching you or iterating on what they've taught you. It doesn't stop. They don't just throw a new puzzle. They don't throw like 4 of the same type of puzzle at you in a row. Each puzzle is adding something to the experience. And so when you get to GLaDOS, like you have like the final boss is a little bit kind of like, I don't know if it's like anticlimactic. Final bosses are hard, but the final boss does at least test you on all the mechanics and tools that they have given you at up to that point in the game. You already have the incinerator. You already have the thing where you have to like, you have to keep it. There's like the one core that goes up really high, so you have to shoot portals up high and like go
Mm-hmm.
down low. You
Yeah.
have to have rockets go through portals to like hit the enemies, which you had to do prior in the game, whether it's to break glass or whether it's
I
to
felt like I was
with
in
the
geometry.
energy balls or something like that.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. So the final boss does a great job of testing you on everything that you learned, and the game itself just slowly iterates the whole way through. So much so that when you get to that section where it's the party at the end of the test site, and they're gonna put you in the incinerator, and they keep talking about cake. We didn't even we'll talk about the cake in a moment. That is a lie, so, allegedly. Um, but like when you break out of that test chamber because you're like slowly going into this fire pit, I've never I think a testament to the layout and the level design is that you feel like you're in a place you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
You feel like you are breaking the game. Like the developers don't even want you there,
Mm-hmm.
but obviously they do. They're guiding you along. But that's such good like art, visual design, and level design that you feel like you're doing something you shouldn't be, and that's a rewarding feeling in and of itself. Because people like kind of
True.
getting away with mischief, right? You
Yeah,
like
that's
being able
exactly
to
what it
like
should feel like.
do
Mhm.
exactly, but the game does it intentionally. They want you to feel that way, and they fucking nail it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I love this game so much for obviously the story and world building and setting that they expand upon in Portal 2. But what I also love it is that the way they execute the gameplay not only teaches you mechanics very fluidly, it also reinforces that world building, that kind of like you're sneaking through places you're not supposed to be by testing you on the mechanics that you've learned as you are getting through this like the last like 30 to 40 minutes of the game. It's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, it's. I've said this word when I was talking about the pacing earlier. The vibes, the atmosphere is just exquisite. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's iconic. I think probably my favorite part of this game is the atmosphere and the vibes and the feeling watched and feeling tested. And even when you're like, yeah, I got through something, you were trying to kill me. And, she's like, you got through another test. And then you get to a point where you really are starting to break things and get out of places where you're supposed to be. And you hear GLaDOS like, what are you doing? Stop that. I mean, haha, excellent job. You passed the test where we pretended we were going to murder you.
Oh God.
Yeah, I don't know. So looking at what was the name of the original game? Vernaculum. Atraculum?
Narbacular drop.
Sounds like a
It sounded like
What the fuck?
it sounded like a name of a Tool album. Their latest one is named Fear Inoculum. So
Yo.
I was like, it's
Oh,
Fear
okay.
Inoculum or something. I don't know if it played exactly the same, but it had that kind of stony aesthetic. I don't know if it would have landed as well, at least for me personally. I love the kind of just back rooms, kind of cold fluorescent lights, and it's somehow perfectly sterile and perfectly grungy at the same time. You can see like parts of the wall have been broken off, and then there's like notes that like, someone who, if you read the comic prior, the Rat Man has left for you, and that only gets more immersive and more. They tell so much more story in the second one with the world itself, and I didn't think going from this one to that one that it could get any better, but it definitely does.
Good writing will do that, man.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was your final thoughts or not on gameplay, Andrew, but do either of you have any final words to say on the gameplay before we move into like story, aesthetic, and whatnot?
I just one last thing, and then Han, you can take it away. I was just impressed at how much they did with the Source engine, like going from Half-Life 2 and like Source being open source, so to speak. Like a bunch of stuff has been made with, I think Team Fortress originally started just as like a fan thing, didn't it?
A lot of stuff was, I think Counter-Strike was a fan thing as well.
Yeah, it was like a
I
mod
think so.
for Half-Life.
I don't know about Team Fortress, but it's a lot of stuff that is now like like Valve ate up and basically is like, oh, you made a really cool mod, you want to work for us, and then they make that into a full-fledged game. So I wouldn't be surprised if Team Fortress was that as well. But
Yeah.
sorry, continue.
I may be thinking of Counter-Strike, but yeah, just the fact that it's just so cool and a testament to having it's kind of like how Bethesda games, I mean, you can go on about how they're kind of broken to begin with, but they make their modding tools like so readily available for people to like just mess around and have fun with it. And then with that, in this, you know, going from Half-Life to Counter-Strike and Half-Life 2 to Portal, like there's so much freedom there. And it was just really cool to see how different, like how much room there really was to play within that engine compared, like going from Half-Life 2 to this, but seeing how much DNA is still there. And it's so impressive, like at how relatively small the team was for making a game that's this good and this engaging and this impressive. And that has such a long lasting legacy. And I think if you think of top 10, like most iconic visually and gameplay wise video games, like I wouldn't argue with anyone putting up this on their top 10. It's just has left such a crater in the zeitgeist of the gaming world, particularly in like the age when it came out, you know, like the late 2000s. Like we still, you know, the cake is a lie is still a thing going around the internet, whether you get the reference or not. Like I was saying earlier, it's so permeated into like what it means to be a gamer. Like anyone who's, even if you haven't touched the game before, if you see the companion cube, you're like, oh yeah, that's from Portal, I think. You know, so it has a really strong lasting legacy for as relatively short as it is compared to some games who were dozens of hours long. So that's just a testament to, like you said, the good writing and the atmosphere and the exquisite pacing. I'll say exquisite once more. But what do you think, hon?
I don't have any more thoughts about the gameplay. All of my thoughts remaining are on the themes.
Well, why don't you kick it off, Pilisa? Like Andrew and I have been talking a whole bunch. What do you have to say about like the themes and kind of like aesthetic and vibes? Like it's such a weird category of conversation or topic of conversation, because it's not just like story. It'll bleed into story, it'll bleed into visuals, it'll bleed into sound, it'll bleed into, you know, like the themes of the story, and then the vibes that the game makes you feel. So just any and all, feel free to dive in and tell us your thoughts on it.
Yeah, totally. So this game scared the shit out of me. I didn't expect it to be scary, maybe because I was listening to the song and I thought, yeah, the song's creepy, but it's cute. But I think levels 1 through 19, as they were like, that's another thing. I don't know who this entity is. It felt like an AI computer. But then like all the rooms, I was like, who's observing? Are there other people here? Are there other humans here? There was a lot of information that I wasn't given, which like I know some games just do that. And I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll just Google the information after I finish. I did like that element. I think that makes it a bit scarier, not really knowing when we are, where we are, who is this entity watching? What is this research and testing for? Who is it for? All of that was running through my mind. But what really freaked me out was like once it was time to escape, I never felt more watched than when I was away from the observation rooms, because I didn't know what to believe. Like, because I'd be running in the rusty back room and she'd be like, you're going the wrong way. I can still see you. Hello? But then she would say hello and I'd be like, so you don't know where I am, but you do? What if this is all still a simulation? Like I could feel myself getting paranoid, even though it was just a game.
Yeah, like what if me escaping is still a test?
Yeah, and then I would see like the words written in what I thought were blood, but I guess it wasn't because it was so bright red. And whoever ran out, I'm sure I think Andrew made the point, like if it was blood, their blood would probably have oxidized to brown by then.
Yeah.
But they were writing like this way, and I think you said it was Ratman.
Yeah,
that's the name.
The Ratman.
Yeah.
There were like tallies on the wall, I'm assuming notating how many days.
Yeah.
There were 6 months worth of tallies, which also made me think like, oh my God, like the idea of being stuck somewhere and you can never get out is like one of my like biggest nightmares. So maybe that's personally for me what made this game so scary. Like the desperation and paranoia. Because I knew in levels 1 through 19, I was like, yeah, this is kind of creepy, but I mean, I know what to expect. Trying to get out, I was like, is she messing with me when she's saying she doesn't know where I am? Is she messing with me when she's saying like, wait, what are you doing? Come back. Because then 5 seconds later, she'll be like, you're doing like talking as if I'm still in the palm of her hand. And if this dude was here for 6 months, what if he's still here and I find his skeleton somewhere? Like, what if this is all like the cake? Like,
I felt so bad because I was like, for context, the scariest piece of media that Pilisa had experienced before we got together was Coraline.
yes.
So
I'm so
that
scared easily.
should tell you her threshold of scary things. I felt so bad because I was like, oh yeah, this game's not even that scary. Like, yeah, there's like a sense of urgency because like, oh, I want to get out because, you know, if you had seen the fear in her eyes when she was trying to escape this, and then she's like, oh my God, I felt
like,
so bad.
I was terrified. I literally felt like I was suffocating. Like,
but it was so interesting though, because it was not to make light of you genuinely being afraid.
How
but
dare you?
it was such an interesting angle because I was like, oh my God, like actually thinking about it, this is kind of a horror game. Like it's terrifying.
Yeah, it's unnerving.
Also, medical things
the first
scare
time
the shit out of me.
Oh,
like
yeah.
the idea of being trapped in a sterile medical facility, like a lab rat,
Yeah.
and no way out, and you don't know where you are, and you don't know how long you've been in this like cage.
Yeah.
Maybe they've injected you with things to the point where you're so delusional, maybe you haven't ever left.
How do you know what to trust?
That would scare. Yeah, that's why. For all those reasons, it was horror for me.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It is a very unnerving experience, like especially because the game puts you in isolation.
Yeah,
like
there's no one else around.
No, there's no, and the only bits that you see around, they're hidden away. Like you see notes from the Rat Man early on, like hidden behind, like there's like some of the like panels that'll get pushed out from the wall. Like there's that one room where there's a bunch of blocks blocking a panel from being able to close. So you can crawl into the back there. And that's where you see a whole bunch of like notes. You can see notes before then too, I'm pretty sure. But like that's the first one where you're like, wow, there's like this pristine interior is actually hiding a much uglier like exterior to this test facility.
And there's just
and like it's all dark and you're dingy and like scary.
And there's piles of like cans of beans that he was living on. It's like, oh God.
Where did you get those? Like,
yeah,
where did he get those?
Well, I imagine the staff, like when there were staff, probably had to eat. So, and if it's anything like they say, like in the song, like one of the only connections to the Half-Life franchise is, you know, they say maybe Black Mesa, that was a joke, haha, fat chance. So it sounds like there's, you know, a bit of a rivalry there. So I wonder if like, and we do kind of actually know this, Aperture Science is like deep underground. So, you know, that means non-perishable goods are probably going to be all over the place. That's what the staff was probably subsisting on.
Dang.
Because they're so far underground that it's going to be like, well, how are we going to get fresh food? You know?
Wow.
So I think about Black Mesa, like all the food in there was like microwave, you know, food and cans and stuff as well. So maybe it's a similar thing there.
That's very true. That's very true. And like I mean, like to bring it quick to at least explain for the listeners, like, if you've gotten this far, like I definitely still recommend playing it. We're kind of spoiling basic like vibes. There's not like what's interesting about Half-Life. Sorry, Half-Life has this too. But what's interesting about Portal is that the story itself is there's not much of a plot. It is you are a test subject and you are going through the test and you're kind of noticing the thing testing you, GLaDOS, kind of is a little bit loopy, to put it nicely, just, you know, a little crazy, and you have to escape. That's the plot. That is the entirety of the plot. There's no real plot twist per se, other than, you know, like them promising you that you're going to, if they're going to like, you know, there's going to be cake. We have cake for you, blah, blah, blah. And that's it. But even then, the whole game, you don't really feel like they're telling the truth. You never trust them when you're
Yeah.
playing, because the shit that GLaDOS says is consistently putting you on edge. And it's funny, like it's really funny, like really dark humor, but it's meant to not make you trust GLaDOS. So when the quote unquote betrayal happens, you're not really all that shocked,
Yeah.
because it's like, well, I fucking expect this to happen. So like the plot points, like the plot, like beat by beat, there's not much to this game at all. What there is, though, what there's a lot more of is world building, and the lack of information allows you to fill in so much with your imagination
Ooh,
that you
true.
start crafting more stories in your head about this world
Oh,
than the
makes
game
sense.
even probably had in mind. And with the whole cake thing, I have one final thing that I had from game development, from my research. The cake idea, the whole reason that the cake is a lie and where this all came from was once again, just for those who don't know, as you're going through the test chamber, GLaDOS promises you a cake, and you see all throughout the game as like the rat man is leaving you messages, and the one that he writes all the time is the cake is a lie, it doesn't exist, the cake is a lie, the cake is a lie, hence where the meme comes from. Spoiler alert, once you beat the game, you do see the cake.
Yep.
There is a black cherry, I think it's a black forest cherry cake is the actual type of cake that it is. The cake idea came from a group meeting, and the meeting began with the writing team trying to determine which philosopher they were going to use as a basis for the writing of the game.
Huh.
And after some discussions, it went quiet, and then someone mentioned that a lot of people like cake, and that's where oops that's it. That's exactly how cake kind of got added into the game.
Just randomly mention people like cake, and that's after
Yeah, a lot of people like cake.
philosophers?
Well, now we're talking about the id and the ego. I think that's Freud that is the one who did that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, defined by Sigmund Freud. So I wonder if they went with Freud for it. I would, based off that, like GLaDOS, you're like slowly going through her id, ego, and super ego as you're destroying different parts of her. I don't know. That's kind of something we just kind of thought up now here, but yeah, it's to bring it back to the vibe in the story, like just there's so little in terms of plot points. It's just really solid writing and vibes. Like it really makes you feel a lot of different things, and with very little information or given to you, which is incredible. So Andrew, what are your thoughts though on like kind of like the world building, the aesthetics, the vibe, the story, all that stuff?
I don't know if I have much to say that I haven't already said. I think the vibes are my favorite part of it. The kind of somehow both sterile and decrepit, grungy. I also have a fear of being like, one of my greatest fears is like being like sent to a mental institution or something and trying to convince everybody that I'm okay, and having them just be like, of course you are. Yes, we know. Take your medicine, like, and not being able to get out. Oh my God. That's it's a nightmare. And so that definitely hits a particular unease for me. But yeah, like I said, I don't think I've seen anything like that, or really since, that really nails that type of vibe. Like, you really do feel like you're a tiny hamster in a little, or like a little rat in a maze, and everybody's just like staring at you with their clipboards. Just like, oh, I see. Oh, it's shat in this corner today.
Yes.
I wonder if it's going to find the cheese that we have hidden over by the skeletons of the ones who came before it.
Oh God.
I love the vibes.
That
My favorite part about it, the vibes and the writing, which I guess the vibes are accentuated by the incredible writing of this game.
Absolutely, it's like the writing in this is insanely. It's just insanely well written. GLaDOS's jabs are like the perfect. They're just perfect, and I say that because like I mentioned the Stanley Parable before, where I felt it was a little pretentious. Like that game likes to make fun of you a lot, which I don't have an issue with, but would always get me is it it never came off as funny to me. It came off as just like, I'm so smart, aren't I? Like, it works in Portal because GLaDOS actually is a character. It's not just this sentient like god being making fun of you. Side note, that doesn't spoil anything for the Stanley Parable, just to be clear. I don't know if it you have to play it to understand. But like, because GLaDOS is an actual character, when she's mocking you and making fun of you, it feels more like a character's doing it, and there's like, it's because of her flaws, not because of anything with you. You know, like GLaDOS is mocking you because she's a sadistic robot that's that's running these tests, and that's why. And they're written so well where they're funny, like you can't help but laugh even though they're at your expense. So I don't know, it just, the writing is so damn good, and considering really you're only writing for her, like in terms of straight dialogue, you're only really writing for her. And then obviously the incredible song performed by written by Jonathan Colton.
You mentioned the GLaDOS's flaws, and I think that just adds to the vibe of it. Like, something feels off. Like, she's not a perfect AI that's, designed to kill you. Like, you can tell this isn't what she was originally or what she was supposed to be. Like, when I mentioned before, when it was like, you are the pride and joy of subject's hometown here, so you can tell things are starting to come unraveled a little bit. And even when you do things that you're not supposed to, the way that she responds is like, she's trying to trick you, but it's almost like she doesn't know how to. She is trying to lie. And I think from a very binary robotic standpoint, she knows what to do to lie, but she doesn't have the nuance of, like, I think of when she goes, the whole promising cake thing is like, no one's going to really believe that, are they? And then there's like, you're not supposed to be here. I mean, no, this was totally a test. Haha, we're all going to laugh about this. Now we're going to go to a party. So just lie flat on your stomach and assume the party position. And one of our party associates will come and collect you. Like, nobody would really fall for that. But that's what I
It
love.
feels like a toddler learning to lie for the first time.
Yes, exactly.
Ooh, yeah, I like that.
And it's you can tell something. There's two levels of wrongness, if that makes sense. Like, you can almost, by what you don't hear, you can kind of intuit what she must have been like before. And we get a little bit of that in Portal 2, but even just on its own, what she was like before, where she's at now, or where she was like when she first started to turn. Maybe she flooded the testing center with a deadly neurotoxin.
Whoa.
And now, is it because it's been so long that she's deteriorating, or is it like, are they just collecting random people now at this point, or are you like the child of someone who was in the the testing center? Because, like, why don't they have your name? Why don't they have your hometown? Like, something just feels off about the fact that it feels off. Like, there's layers. There's so many layers to it. Sorry, that was a bit of a diatribe.
No, I love that analysis, hun. Wow, that made me think. I didn't even think that maybe she was less like Lolo before. But yeah, I like the idea of her like hardware deteriorating, and that's why she's a little cracked.
A little loopy.
Puffs.
Yeah.
Huh.
She's kind of like this aging AI that's just deteriorating. Like, that's the vibe I got originally, because even like some of the, what is it, like, even before you go through the party test position or whatever the fuck, like you hear her kind of lose, like, you hear like the and then repeat stuff periodically. Like, she's kind of losing her cool, not her cool, she's kind of losing what is left of her mind, and you kind of help it along the rest of the way when you finish her off. But yeah, it's just, there's some games that you'll play and just there is so much communicated to you by not communicating anything. And this game really does that in a very, like, exceptionally well. It just does it exceptionally well. Because, like, Pilisa, I loved hearing your first experience with it, asking all these different questions, because that was storytelling. They did all that storytelling by making you feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew they were going to make you feel that way, and they weren't going to give you the answers that you wanted to let your imagination fill in the rest and make it more horrific in your head.
Absolutely. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah, there's a lot they tell
Yeah.
you within what they don't tell you.
Yep. That is like it's such. I think that's why this game has like stood the test of time so well. One, the gameplay mechanics are timeless. I think like no ifs, ands, or buts. The gameplay mechanics are timeless, and I don't think they're ever going to like get old anytime soon. I think that this game just works on so many different levels. And then in terms of storytelling, because it's so vague and you can't tie it to any really particular time unless we suddenly start developing the technology for portals, like this game's going to feel timeless probably forever. Because it's so like the sci-fi testing facility gives it an air of just like, this is like, you could see this happening in the 80s, you could see this happening now. It doesn't like the look and feel of it. The only thing that could potentially date it is the radios that are in each level. And that's about it. And even then, though, radios still exist. And if you're in a test chamber, they would want to give you something that's not connected to the outside. And a radio, like, they can control that signal. You know what I mean? So, like, they wouldn't give you a cell phone.
Right.
I mean, they could technically, but like, even so, I don't know. This game, I think, just, I guess, is kind of a good transition into like final thoughts with everything. This game is just it just works on so many different levels, and if it's firing all cylinders. I also think it's a really good length, though I would like it to be maybe one or two puzzles longer now that but that also is coming from someone who has played it a lot and knows how to think in portals already. And they have that, like, you can just play more. They have like test chambers that are not part of the story. It's just like, here's some harder like portal levels that we did not include in the game. Have at it. As another testament to it, I'm gonna have to double check. And while maybe both of you or one of you two are talking to talk about like kind of your final thoughts on the game, actually, and of course we should talk about, you know, the song at the very end, you know, Still Alive as well. But I'm pretty sure, I'm gonna look this up while you two are talking, but I'm pretty sure I read somewhere that science teachers were using Portal to teach physics to their students.
Oh, I 100% believe that.
Me too.
Friend of my show and friend of real life, Chris Physics from Physics Dev Quest, is a physics teacher, and he uses Portal all the time.
Wow.
I see a Reddit post, my teacher using Portal 2 to teach physics. Portal's puzzles provide an excellent, this is from there's a handful of different things that I'm seeing, like teaching physics with Portal 2, teaching why teach with portals. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff, like Fast Company. That's a legitimate like news source. How Portal 2 developers became the best sixth grade teachers ever. Sorry, I paused because I was trying to let the rest of the headline load.
He's glitching out. He's deteriorating.
I don't hate you.
I don't blame you.
So yeah, it's wild though. Like that, like this game is just it's timeless. It's wonderful. I don't know any other way to put it. This game is just wonderful on every single possible level, and I'm happy I finally got an excuse to talk about it on the show.
I'm surprised that it took this long. I'm also surprised to hear you haven't covered a Valve game at all.
So the only other Valve games I've played, I did play Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. I've played those all the way through. I beat Half-Life 2, but not Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and not Half-Life 2 Episode 2. And I never beat the original Half-Life.
Oh.
So part of me was going to wait to do it, but like the reason we jumped up Portal in front of all these is that when I was talking with Andrew on stream the one night, I'm like, man, I have an episode slot open and I need to fill it fast. I don't have a lot of time. I can't think of a game that I could beat quickly. And you're like, well, what about Portal? I'm like, holy shit, yes, let's do Portal. It's long overdue and you can beat it in an hour and a half. I beat it like literally the next night on stream. Like that was it.
Wow.
So I want to throw it over to both of you. You know what, Pilisa, since it's your first time experiencing it, I would love to hear your thoughts first on this. Like, final thoughts. Like, overall, what did you think of the game? What impression did it leave on you? Just kind of final thoughts. Go for it.
Sure. So I found it compelling. Definitely compelling. My head hurt, if I'm being honest, not to sound like a dumbass, but like I haven't had a game ask me to think that hard in a minute. And like specifically, I felt like I was taking a geometry class again. Like I had to think about like the circumference of a surface area, the radius. My brain was like, okay, should I move in an isosceles triangle if I want to get through this portal to get there? I was like looking at angles and stuff. I was like, I feel like I'm doing math and physics and just wow.
Yeah, I remember when we were first talking about it, you were like, okay, we were about to play it, and you were like, okay, I'll prepare my heart for Portal. And I was like, you should prepare your brain for Portal.
Yeah.
And then I remembered halfway through the game what happens, and I was like, yeah, actually prepare your heart too.
Oh my God. I definitely needed both. The song is never going to sound the same to me ever again. I'm terrified to listen to it now because it's all literal. And I'm like, but I do think it was fun. Oh God, I was terrified. It terrified the shit out of me. And I'm very interested. In fact, I'm probably going to do this before bed. I'm probably just going to Google the backstory because even though I like that the game didn't give a lot of information, now that I'm done, I do want to know what's the name, who are these people who created this place, who created this AI, where are the other human beings, are there other? I want to know everything because I'm not playing the second one. I'm sorry. No,
I was gonna say if you
I'm
really
too
want to
scared.
know,
Nope.
you could just play the second one, which is not
Second one.
It's more.
Yeah, it's not as scary.
And that's so scary for me. I'm happy to just sit. I had a good experience with the game. I don't think I have the heart to play that again. Yeah.
That's totally fair. And if you do want to get your fix of Portal without all the creepy, there is a co-op mode in Portal 2.
Yeah.
That's like there's no story to it really. It's just kind of like it's honestly really funny. You have these two cute robots and they're kind of happy go lucky and you're just testing out Portal stuff. It's fun.
Oh.
Atlas and Peabody are their names. I don't know why I still remember that.
What a great name too. Yeah. But Andrew, you were the last one to talk about this. Final thoughts on it. And I guess, real quick, shout out to, Still Alive, written by Jonathan Colton. We Pilisa talked about at the beginning of the episode. We should just say this song fucking still slaps. It's great. It's the end credits song. Probably should have devoted a section of the episode to it, but we're at the end of the episode now. And if you want to know the sense of humor from Portal, just listen to this song and you will know the sense of humor from Portal. It is great. It's wonderful. And many companion cubes to it. I love it.
Yeah, it really is a great gauge of the tone of the game itself, or a reflection of it, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say only thing I think that I really want to talk about is at the very end, I know we pretty much have spoiled everything by now, but do you know about there's two endings? Like, not like if you do things a certain way kind of two endings, but there was an ending and then they updated the game and now there's like a slightly longer ending. Do you know about that?
I don't think so. I'm going to try looking at what was it?
So in the original version of the game, it just everything blows up, the vortex sucks you up and all the pieces of GLaDOS and everything is raining down around you and stuff's burning and you're finally outside and you're like, oh, I made it. And then your character's just your eyes kind of close and you're like, did I die? Is that just like a closing my eyes? I made it. I'm safe. Then they updated it maybe when Portal 2 got greenlit. I'm not sure, but they updated it so that your character starts to get dragged away. And it's like you hear a robotic voice that says, thank you for assuming the party retrieval position.
Jeez.
So it's like, oh my God, after all that, you're getting drugged back. And it's just to set up that there's going to be a sequel. But I thought that was really interesting. And there was also things that they added in there was something, I should have looked this up prior, but there was something to do with the radios. They put an update patch out that was like, there was maybe I think a Morse code or something on the radio that fans then had to decipher. Like the radios play the song, they're like do, but then sometimes it would change to like some kind of code, and if you decipher the code, then it was like maybe something about Portal 2 or something that saying that they weren't done. And I always thought that was a really cool this was early, like DLC was just becoming a thing. Patching was just becoming a thing. Like, I played it on Xbox 360, which is because, like I said, I didn't have the computer to run it. So when it was on 360, I was like, oh, sweet, I can finally play it. So maybe I didn't play it with like DLC, or maybe I played it offline or something, but I distinctly remember it just ending. And then someone, I think, told me, like, oh yeah, no, there's like a new ending. And I was like, what do you mean a new ending? They added a new ending. I was like, they can't do that. Because I was like, patches and stuff were just barely becoming a thing. But yeah, I guess the true ending now is you get drug off by some other robot or something. I don't know. It's a different voice. It's obviously not GLaDOS. But yeah,
maybe it's Atlas or Peabody. I actually don't know.
That's what I thought too, but I don't know if they have voices. I haven't actually ever played the co-op in Portal 2. I always wanted to though.
Oh, it's great. It's definitely worth it.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, have you heard of a game called Splitgate at all?
No.
So it's basically, and I mean this in the most literal sense, it's Halo with Portal mechanics. So it's like
okay.
Yeah, it's like a competitive shooter. Like they've basically got all the weapons from Halo, like rocket launchers and stuff. But you can shoot portals and go through them, and you can shoot through portals, and it looks absolutely mind-breaking. But today, as of today, when we were recording this, the State of Play, they announced a second one, and it looks really cool. It looks just as mind-breaking. Like, and it's also not very shy about just being like, yeah, we literally just like completely ripped off the designs from Portal. Like it's oval, they're oval color-coded portals, and the rocket launchers look exactly like the rocket launcher from Halo. We're not even going to be shy about it, but it looks like it's a blast. So it's cool to see the next level of iteration of what you could do with portals.
That's awesome. I had no idea that was a thing. That's really cool. I mean, it's essentially what Portal 3 could be. Well, I wouldn't want Portal 3 to be with guns like that, but Valve and their tendency to not count past 2.
I was just gonna say, they've never made a 3 game.
Nope. The closest is Half-Life Alyx, which I've heard is phenomenal as a VR game, but I don't have
amazing.
VR.
Oh, I've been wanting to play it all the way through. I've only played it a little bit. I do have a VR, and I played the beginning of it, and I stayed in the first room for like an hour and a half. Like, it's so cool.
If you have VR and you have the game, why haven't you beaten it yet?
That's a great question, and it probably has something to do with either ADHD or the fact that I have a million games that I need to play.
Yo, for you.
I also want to stream it, so I have to figure out how to do that.
That sounds complicated, and I don't want to figure that out.
Yeah. But I could see them doing what I would really love for them to do is there was a game, actually a friend of mine, I don't know if I can say their name, but was working on a fan game, just was doing art for a fan game called Project Borealis, which was supposed to tie Half-Life and Portal together. And I would have loved for Valve to either pick that up or I think actually the friend was just telling me that a demo just dropped for it.
Okay.
So, but it sounded really cool, and I wish Valve would do something with like bridging the Half-Life and Portal universes together. Like, I could see it working with like, you get the portal gun, you set a portal, like maybe Gordon Freeman comes across Aperture Labs or something, and he gets the portal gun, and you set a portal, and then you're like throwing grenades through the portals at your enemies and stuff. That would be so sick.
All right. Well, I don't. Sorry, what?
I was just saying, it'd be pretty awesome.
Well, I don't have anything else to add. I think we're at a good spot to wrap up this episode. Andrew and Pilisa, thank you both for joining me for this to discuss Portal, the first Valve game covered on the show, long overdue. So yeah, thank you both for setting aside time for this and chatting. It was awesome. As per usual, Sorry. If you want to be, oh my gosh, sorry. Now it's the time for shout outs and plugs. So if you are to be found online, where can the good people find you, and what would you like to promote, if anything?
Why don't you go first?
Yeah, so I can be found on Instagram. My handle is cutie-pie-peachon. I model, so I mean, I do commercial modeling, part modeling, fashion, of course, and then on my TikTok, I just kind of talk about whatever I want. It's Pilisa Mackey. Yeah, you can follow me if you like. It'd be kind of cool.
And for me, you've probably heard this before, but I am across pretty much any platform at the Experience Point. It's TheEXP Point. I stream 4 days a week on Twitch, and then I, try to be active on all the other sites and TikTok and doing the dang thing. But Twitch and YouTube are probably my main ones. But yeah, this is awesome. I'm really glad that this worked out in the way that did, and that you needed to cover a short game quickly, because I've been wanting to show Pilisa Portal, so it worked out great. And I would say that it was a triumph, and I am making a note here.
Huge success. Nice.
Oh, well, that was a perfect way to. Oh, I still have to give my plugs. That would have been a perfect ending, Andrew. Damn it, you ruined it. No, thank you both for joining me. Please go follow them, listeners. Go check out all their socials. As per usual for myself, you can follow me on Facebook. I was about to say Twitter. I'm so used to that cadence. I'm not on that hellhole anymore. Facebook, Instagram. Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, technically Threads, but I'm not really active on there. But at Still Loading Pod on all those locations. You can also find me on YouTube at Still Loading Podcast and Twitch at Still Loading Pod, where I also stream every Tuesday with Andrew over on his Twitch channel, the EXP for Talk Tuesdays. And then if I'm feeling up to it afterwards, I stream a little bit on my own. But I usually stream guaranteed Saturday nights on my channel, and whatever other night I end up being free. But generally, Tuesday and Saturday nights around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is when I'm live. Once again, Tuesday, though, 8 p.m. starts over at the Experience Point. But if you want to support the show, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever podcasting app you use. It does help more people find the show, and it just takes a little bit of your time, and it would really mean a lot to me. And it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. I like feeling warm and fuzzy, especially for a nice 5-star review. If you really like the show and you want to support it monetarily, I have a lot of extra bonus stuff for you for that. Go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For $1 a month, you get all the episodes a little bit earlier with better audio quality, as well as access to patron voting rights, where you can help guide the direction of the show. I do quarterly polls where I put up a couple games, and you can help pick future topics for the show based off those polls. For $3 a month, you get all that stuff I mentioned prior, the early access and the voting, plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get everything I mentioned prior, plus 2 mini bonus episodes. And for $5 a month, you get all of that. The bonus episodes, the voting, the patron shoutouts, the early access, everything, plus access to my monthly movie podcast, which at the time we are releasing this, it is Still Family, my monthly Fast and Furious movie podcast, where all the guests who join me aren't just friends, they're family. But that's it. That's everything over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. And that is all the time I have for you on this episode. Thank you all so much for listening. Andrew, Pilisa, thank you once again for joining me.
Thank you.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.